Over the past 10 plus years of working with countless artists and producers, I've seen this one critical mistake that 90% of home producers make, and it completely ruins their vocal mix, especially when it comes to home recordings. Today I'm gonna show you exactly what that mistake is and how to fix it, so you can get that professionally sounding vocals you've been aiming for every time. The technique I'm about to show you, used by Grammy-winning engineers like TZO and Josh Goodwin, has helped me and many of my students achieve smooth vocal mixes, just like you hear in hit records. Okay, so what is this problem and what mistake we are making? To understand this, we're gonna have to dig a bit deeper. We are recording at home. The mic goes into our interface, then into our DAW, and finally we hit record. When you listen to it, it sounds okay, you don't hear any noise. Now it's time to mix it in, following the YouTuber's advice on plugins and techniques, but your vocal just doesn't want to sound as professional and smooth. Your vocals sound boomy, harsh, and even boxy. Some parts sound different than others. But when we recorded, it sounded okay, so what happened? The problem we are facing is this simple thing called dynamics. Now, dynamics are good, but we want to control the dynamics, and normally we use a compressor for that, which is great. However, this is when many things can go wrong, particularly with home recordings. Now, I'm not gonna explain in this video how to set the compressor, because that's not the point. But here is what I mean. In a professional studio environment, you have an acoustically treated room with an expensive mic that goes into a hardware, which has a possible light compression, and from there to your interface and DAW. So the signal we have is already controlled. Now, most of us have a home setup with a minimal acoustic treatment, with a budget mic that goes into a budget interface, which converts the signal into the DAW. And we end up with a dynamically uneven signal, which kind of sounds like this.
Stay until the morning. I got what you like, but you act like you don't want it.
When we apply a compressor on this, we dial in the threshold, ratio, and attack. We're gonna have a volume drop, and to compensate for that, we use the makeup gain, and we get this result.
Yeah, baby, wait. It's getting late. I know you wanna stay. Close the door.
To get control over the dynamics, we needed to use harder compression, which means we have more gain reduction. With higher gain reduction, we have to compensate with more makeup gain, which brings up all the little nuances of the recording that we didn't hear before, including acoustics, noise, breaths, acids, and the flaws of the budget gear we use. So as home producers, we start with a major disadvantage. But I have to tell you, you are not alone in this, and even high-profile records often have a similar problem, as many of them were recorded in a home environment, but they still sound great. Because the good news is that we can compensate for this problem with a pretty simple solution. Now, we all have many vocal takes, and different vocal parts sound different. Vocals have different verses and choruses, and often within parts there are sonic differences, especially in home recordings. The vocalist more than likely recorded these takes at a different time of the day, or just moved a little bit back from the mic, or even recorded in a different room. For this reason, the same setup and the same compressor won't work. Now that we established this key piece, I want to show you the technique I use myself and many Grammy-nominated winning engineers like TZO who explain this method. We need less compression, but less compression means less control, right? Well, yes and no. So how do we achieve the same control with less compression? Okay, we have the verse here is the chorus, and the second verse. Instead of processing them on one channel, first we need to divide them into separate channels. This will allow us to process them independently. This substantially improves our chances, but there could still be significant dynamic differences in a single take that would lead us to overcompress, and some of our takes wouldn't blend well. In this situation, instead of overstressing the compressor, we need to tackle the problem at the root. A very important step is to adjust the region gain on the amplitude peaks. We can do it manually by isolating those parts and turning down the peaks, which is great but very time consuming, or we can use a plugin that does the job for us, like Vocal Rider. With the correct settings, Vocal Rider will bring those peaks down without affecting the floor noise.
You ain't gotta break a sweat, Gaia. Got me going crazy, yeah. You ain't gotta go tonight, you can stay until the morning. I got what you like.
Adjusting this simple thing at the root already helps us a ton, so the vocal needs less compression. However, we still have some amplitude peaks that can make the compressor work harder than it should. Now, these amplitude peaks are caused by lower frequencies. To eliminate these lower frequencies, we're gonna use an EQ right before the signal hits the compressor. We utilize a simple high-pass filter, and if we look at the compressor now, you can see it works much less, which is great.
Got me going crazy, yeah. You ain't gotta go tonight, you can stay until the morning.
But how can we refine it even further to have total control in the most efficient way? For this, instead of using a traditional compressor that ducks the signal as a whole, we're gonna use a dynamic EQ. With this tool, we can dynamically adjust the frequencies that cause harshness and boxiness in our vocals, making them sound much smoother, as we can set up each band to suit what that frequency range needs.
Like girl, let me introduce you into my world.
Now, this is already pretty sophisticated, but what about when the singer hits different notes? The EQ bands stay the same, but the notes shift, while our frequency bands that we set up target only the same frequency. For this situation, to be even more accurate, we're gonna use a sophisticated smart dynamic EQ that adjusts the frequencies not just dynamically on each band, but also shifts the frequency bands depending on what needs to be attenuated. For this instance, we're gonna use a plugin called Curves Equator, and you can see that this plugin automatically finds the resonant frequencies, which is great, but you can also control it manually.
Crazy, yeah. You ain't gotta go tonight, you can stay until the morning.
Now that we gain total control of our vocal, it's just one piece of the puzzle to achieve a good balance between the vocal and the instrumental. To achieve this balance, we need to blend the vocal well in the mix. So watch this video next on how to get that perfect balance and create that perfect harmony between the vocal and the instrumental, so you don't destroy all the hard work you've put into your mixes.